In this series, and exclusive to this channel, I'll be taking you through the evidence in full that Lucy Letby gave to the court during her 10 days on the witness stand. The purpose behind this series is to give you, the viewer, a full and factual understanding of the evidence presented to Lucy Letby during her original trial. What you'll hear next is Lucy Letby's cross-examination in court. This took place at Manchester Crown Court and was conducted by Nicholas Johnson, KC. We're going to move on to Child P, please, if I can just deal with some of the background. Can we look at the defence statement, please? Count 21, please, ladies and gentlemen. Paragraph 179. It begins with you denying having hurt Child P. At paragraph 180, in the evening of June 23rd, Belinda Simcock asked me if I wanted to look after Child P on the 24th. I said I did. I wanted to do this as continuity for the benefit of the parents, rather than them seeing me working with other babies after what had happened with Child O. I don't recall having an argument with Kate Percival Ward about wanting to be in Nursery 1. On June 24th, Child P was in Nursery 2. A little after 09:35, I was talking with Rebecca Morgan when Child P stopped breathing. Just to remind us, Rebecca Morgan is the student. Is that right? Yes. Dr. Yuko was in Nursery 2 already because he was writing up his notes. The monitor sounded and I shouted for Dr. B because she was already on the unit. I also called Dr. A to assist. At paragraph 183, Dr. B came, a crash call went out. A lot of doctors and nurses came. It was chaotic. Child P was too ill to move to Nursery 1, so he remained in Nursery 2. When Dr. Rackham arrived, he took control of what was happening. Paragraph 184. Events during the collapse and resuscitation are difficult to remember. At paragraph 185, Child P's stomach was distended when he collapsed, but it was not as red as Child O's had been. I don't recall Child P's skin being mottled. Paragraph 186. After Child P died, we talked about dressing the twins. I was asked to dress them in the same outfits. Christopher Booth and I did this in Nursery 2. Sophie Ellis took photos of Child P with Child O and Child R. There's nothing strange about this, it's part of the bereavement pathway. I did the bereavement pack and memory box. At paragraph 187, at some stage during this, I pricked myself on a cannula needle which had been put into Child P's leg. I went to the accident and emergency department, as was standard procedure with a needle stick procedure, and I was there for about an hour. Whilst there, I fainted, and I had to be given medical attention. I think this is because of the stress and upset of the past 2 days, and because I hadn't eaten. I completed the bereavement procedure and the memory box after returning from A&E. At paragraph 188, on the 23rd of June 2016, I had been looking after Child P, Child O, and another baby. I kept the handover sheet from June 23rd so I would know what I was doing. I had written notes on the back of the handover sheet. I took it home to bring it into work the next day to write up the notes on the unit. The sheet stayed with me, and after Child P died, I forgot about it and brought it home with me, and it stayed there. Although I had forgotten about it, I did not decide to keep it. Do you accept that Child P was born in good condition? Yes. The day after his birth, Wednesday the 22nd of June, do you accept that he was doing well? And at 11:45 that morning, he was taken off CPAP by Dr. B. Yes. Do you accept that that day, his blood gases were excellent? Yes, I haven't reviewed them myself, but yes, I accept that. Thank you. On Thursday the 23rd of June, which was the day Child O died, and if we could just look at Child 22, please, I'm going to suggest this shows that Child O was taken off Optiflow at 6 a.m. If we scroll down, please. Can you see? Yes. You'll remember that this day, or the time at which Child P was taken off Optiflow, became a subject of confusion when some of the witnesses were giving evidence. Do you remember that? Yes. Dr. Gibbs, for example, thought that he'd been on Optiflow much closer to the time of his death than in fact was the case. Yes. And Dr. Gibbs therefore mistakenly attributed the distension of his stomach and bowel to Optiflow. Yes. But in fact, he wasn't on Optiflow at all for many hours prior to his death, was he? No. At 10 a.m, and this is tile 64, so we're still on the 23rd, the day child O died, the day you were in nursery 2 with child O, child P and the other child, an examination by Dr. Cook and Dr. A was unremarkable. Do you agree? Yes. And do you accept that throughout that day, there was nothing unusual at all so far as child P was concerned? Not in the daytime, no. Events, I suggest, started to take a turn for the worse just after child O had died. Child O having died at 1747. Do you agree? Yes. Do you remember that Dr. Gibbs examined child P in the aftermath, the immediate aftermath of child O's death? Yes. That's tile 133, please. This is you feeding child P, isn't it, at 1800 hours. Do you remember? No, again, that's not my writing. Sorry? That's not my writing. What's not your writing? The 1800 feed. All right. Whose signature is it at the bottom? Possibly mine. Possibly yours. Who else's might it be? I can't see for definite, but it looks like mine. Yes, but that's not my writing. As a matter of interest, do you remember what you said in interview about this when the police asked you questions about it? No. No? Well, we'll come to it. You think about it over the break. Do you remember Dr. Gibbs saying that when he examined child P, he was remarkably well for a triplet baby and very well grown? No, but if that's what he said, he did. If we go to tile 145, please, we see that a blood test was also taken at about this time. Yes, and that came back as normal. Do you accept that? I think the result may be further down. Yes, the culture is negative. Yes, 5 days later, tragically several days after he died, of course, child P's blood at the time you were coming to the end of your shift on which we suggest you had murdered his brother was entirely normal. From a blood culture perspective, yes. Yes. What other perspective would be relevant? So this is purely looking at if there's any bacterial growth within a venous blood source. It doesn't describe CRPs or any other blood issues. There weren't any other issues at this stage, were there? Okay. Were there? I can't say without looking. I've only seen this. But you've told me more than once that you do look at the papers in advance of giving evidence about these cases. Yes, I can't remember it all. No one would expect you to remember everything. But have you identified an issue that was ongoing at this time with child P? No. You overfed child P sometime between 1800 and handing him over at 2000, didn't you? No, I did not. We'll just deal with that point that I asked you about earlier, about Rebecca Morgan and the feed at 1800 hours. Go to the child P interviews, please, to the very first interview. Do you see there the police are asking about the feeding chart that we just looked at? Yes. Can you see that you say, at 10 o'clock he received a further feed via his NG tube? Yes. You say, by the student nurse, countersigned by myself. Then 12 o'clock nappy care, small vomit. All done by the student nurse, co-signed by me. Another feed at 1400 via the NG tube, done by the student nurse, co-signed by me. Another feed at 1600. Just read what you say there then, please. Via his NG tube, and that was signed by the student nurse and then by myself. And there was a feed at 1800 via his NG tube, and that's signed by myself. Then, is there a reason why Rebecca hasn't signed after 4 o'clock? What do you say? Students usually only work an early shift, so potentially she had gone home. Potentially she had gone home. Is there a reason why you've got entries for 4 and 6 o'clock? I replied, when a student does a feed, they have to inform somebody that they've done it to get a co-signature. I have co-signed that one, and then I believe I may have done this feed for somebody at 6 o'clock. Can I just point out that I did not have the chart at this point? You've done it for somebody. Is that common practice then to sign on someone's behalf? And you say, no, I mean, I've done the feed. Yes, but I've done it on behalf of somebody and they've had to leave. You say you didn't have the chart. Can you go to the bottom of the previous page, please? What's your reply at the bottom? So this is the feed chart. He's been fed at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's via the student nurse and co-signed by myself. So this is his feed chart here. What did you mean by that? Sorry? Okay, so this is his feed chart here. What did you mean by that? That's his feed chart for the 23rd. Yes, you've just told the jury that you didn't have the feed chart. But So far as your evidence before the break was concerned, having thought about it over the adjournment, is there anything that you would like to amend or add to? No. We got almost to the position, or pretty much to the position, where you were handing over Child P to one of your colleagues at the end of the day shift of June 23rd, on which Child O had died. All right? Yes. You said in answer to questions from your own counsel that so far as Child P's position at handover at between 1930 and 2000 hours on the 23rd, there were no problems. Yes. Is that your position? Yes. But do you remember the evidence of the X-ray? The radiograph that was taken of Child P just after 8 p.m. Yes. And do you remember the evidence of Dr. Arthur's about this? No. Do you remember it being suggested to Dr. Arthur's on your behalf that the reason for the abdominal distension was because Child P had been on CPAP? I can't recall if that's what he said, then. As a matter of fact, the last time Child P had had CPAP was about 36 hours earlier, wasn't it? Do you remember that? Again, I can't say without looking definitively. No. Well, would you like to look at the chart to see? No, if it's agreed, then that's okay. Well, it can be checked. It's J23820. I'm suggesting that the last time Child P had had CPAP was 11:45 hours on Wednesday the 22nd, so just before midday the previous day. If we put up tile 173, please, Mr. Murphy, we see there that the NG tube is in a satisfactory position, but there are gas-filled loops throughout the abdomen through to the lower rectum with no evidence of obstruction and no signs of perforation. And that was because in the aftermath of his brother's death, you had pumped air into Child P just before you handed him over, isn't it? No. This was a significant change from the position with Child P in the preceding 48 hours, though, wasn't it? Yes. Yes. And it happened just as you were handing him over, didn't it? That's when the X-ray was taken, yes. Yes. It's very similar, isn't it, to what happened to Child O the previous night. Just as you handed him over, Child O was having problems. Do you agree? Yes, Child O had problems on into the night shift, yes. So 24 hours later, problems for a child who had had no problems during the day. Yes. Yes. And Dr. Arthur's, you may remember, told us that this image was quite unusual in a baby of this age and gestation. Do you agree that the gas was there because somebody put it there? I can't comment on how the gas got there. I just know that it wasn't me that put it there. Look at tile 171, please. We can see that throughout the day when you are signing or countersigning the feeding record, there are no significant aspirates, can't we? Yes, that's right. Yet we see the moment, literally the moment he's handed over, a 14mm aspirate. Yes. And that was your doing, wasn't it? No. And on your way home, you were sowing the seeds with your colleagues. Do you remember that text I showed you at tile 403 on the Child O sequence? Worried because they're identical, or words to that effect? Yes. Yes. Just as you got home. Do you remember you were in a two-way conversation, one with Nurse E, the other with Dr. A? Yes. You were feeding a false narrative to your colleagues, weren't you? No. Trying to divert attention away from your homicidal activities. No. Do you agree that Dr. Maybury put child P nil by mouth in the light of those aspirates? Yes. Yes, after midnight. Yes. After midnight. Do you remember being asked about this sequence of events, so far as feeding was concerned overnight, by your counsel as part of your evidence in chief? Yes. This shows, doesn't it, and we heard evidence from her, that Catherine Percival Ward got an aspirate at 0400 hours. Yes. And do you remember saying in answer to your own counsel that the material that was drawn out in the aspirate wasn't there when the earlier aspirate was taken, because when the earlier aspirate was taken, they would have emptied the stomach because the syringe has a resistance? This was your evidence. Yes. Do you remember saying that? Yes. But what we can see if we look at it, just examining your explanation, your assertion that this is a developing problem and the reason you've just given for why that is, what we see looking at the chart is that at 7 a.m. 0700 hours, do you see that Sophie Ellis got 5 ml of air and 2 ml of milk at 7 o'clock? Yes. How much milk had child P been fed overnight? I think he had had 2 feeds prior to midnight, 28 ml was it, or something? Yes. But he'd been fed nothing at all, had he, during this day? No. So unless somebody was surreptitiously feeding him milk when you weren't there, the obtaining of that milk shows that the stomach hadn't been emptied by Catherine Percival Ward, doesn't it? No, what I was suggesting is that air would come out when you're aspirating milk. Milk obviously sits in the stomach and would depend how close it was to the end of the NG tube, but air should come out regardless. Well, it all depends where the end of the NG tube is, doesn't it? If the NG tube is in the stomach, air will come out. No. If the NG tube is in the liquid in the stomach, it wouldn't take any air out at all until the liquid it's actually dipped into has been emptied, would it? No. It's common sense. You don't need to be a nurse to understand it. It's like emptying a pond with a hose pipe, siphoning a can of petrol. The point I'm trying to make is, so that you understand, is I'm examining your assertion, and the reasons for it, that Catherine Percival Ward had emptied the stomach with that 25 ml aspirate, and I'm suggesting that she hadn't. Okay. Well, do you agree or disagree? I disagree. Do you agree that by the end of this shift on which child P had problems, he was comfortable, settled, and seemed like a well baby? At 8 o'clock in the morning? Yes. I'm not sure. You're not sure? He had just been reviewed by the registrar. I'm not sure. Do you agree that whatever had been the problem when you handed over child P, it had resolved itself by the time you got him back at 7:30 the following morning? No, because he's been placed nil by mouth. Yes, but he was a well baby by the time he was handed over to you, wasn't he? No, I disagree. A baby nil by mouth is not a well baby. Okay. Do you remember saying in evidence that Sophie Ellis was quite concerned about child P in view of what had happened to child O, and that he'd been reviewed several times overnight? Yes. Do you remember what you said to the police, though? No. Well, can we look at your police interviews, please? It's the child P interviews. Can you see the second question on the page says, OK, but in terms of your view of his health on this day, on the 24th, when you first took over his care, was he stable? Was he well? And your answer, please? He appeared so, yes. I think it was just we were keeping an eye. He was nil by mouth at the time and keeping an eye on his abdomen. I have just made that suggestion to you that he was stable and he was well, and you said that he wasn't. Why did you say that he was in the interview? I didn't say he was stable. I said that he wasn't a well baby, being nil by mouth. Was he stable? Was he well? Yes, this is the time of the interview. Yes. He appeared so. Yes. Yes, I agree. This was fresh in my memory, more so than today. Are you trying to make the position of child P appear to be worse now, to explain what happened whilst you were looking after him on June 24th? No. Let's go to the sequence of events at tile 258, please. There we see the population distribution, don't we? Yes. I just want, if we can, to go back to the previous tile, which is 257. What I'd like you to do is look at the staff who were on, the registered nurses, and tell us from whom the shift leader would have been selected. The shift leader for this shift had been selected by the shift leader of the night shift previous to this. I understand, but which of those names would have been sufficiently qualified to have been a shift leader? Nurse D and Chris Booth. So it's got to be either one or the other. Yes. All right. Can we go back to 258, please? Now, looking at the population distribution layout, we have Nurse D with 2 in Nursery 1, yes, together with your friend Mary Griffith, Chris Booth with a single baby in Nursery 2, and you with Child P, yes. Then Mary Griffith and Angela McShane sharing the babies in Nurseries 3 and 4, yes. Does it look like, therefore, that the shift leader on this shift was Christopher Booth? Yes, it was Christopher Booth, yes. Now, whilst you were conducting safety checks at the beginning of the shift, you told the jury, in answer to questions from your own counsel, that Child P's abdomen was quite loopy, that you could see visible loops of bowel, that you spoke to the nurse in charge, who we now know would have been Christopher Booth, yes, and said, quote, "We were going to wait for Dr. Yuko to review him." Yes. Do you remember saying that? Dr. Yuko did that and was still in the nursery when Child P had an apnea and you were there at the time. Yes. And you said you thought Rebecca Morgan was there too. Yes. So that was, in broad terms, your explanation for the first event. Before we get to the detail, I just want to ask you the questions I have asked you in relation to all these incidents. Are you suggesting, looking at the population distribution, that staffing levels caused or contributed to Child P's collapse and death on June 24th? No. Are you suggesting that anybody's mistakes caused or contributed to Child P's collapse and death? No. Is there anything you can point to about the circumstances of Child P's care that, in your view, caused or contributed to his collapse or death? I think from the evidence there's potentially some issues with the chest drain, but I can't say what effect that had on Child P, if any. Do you accept that when you took over Child P, the NGT, the nasogastric tube, was on free drainage? I can't say from my memory. That would be standard practice. Yes. Well, let's look at the document. I was just wondering if you could remember. It's 249, please. This is Sophie Ellis' note. So it's about 50 minutes before you came into work, isn't it? Yes. Abdomen has been soft and non-distended. 25 ml of air aspirated by senior nursing practitioner Kate Ward, which is what we saw on the form. Is that right? Yes. Then NGT placed on free drainage. Yes. And that would have remained a position, all things being equal, wouldn't it? Yes. Do you accept the evidence of Dr. B and Dr. Maybury that they discussed Child P at the handover this morning and there were no concerns about him? Yes, that's their discussion, yes. Why was it then that you created a false nursing note, which I will show you at tile 263? NG tube on free drainage, do you see that at the bottom? Yes. Trace amount in tube, abdomen full, loops visible. Yes. This is not the picture in a note of Sophie Ellis at 6:39, is it? No. No. Abdomen full, loops visible. This is a carbon copy, isn't it, of Sophie Ellis' note from the previous day for Child O? No. Let's go back to Child O's sequence, if we can, tile 105. Abdo looks full, slightly loopy, abdo soft. What you wrote the next day for his brother, abdomen full, loops visible, soft to touch. Yes, that's what I saw. It wasn't what Sophie Ellis had seen 50 minutes earlier. No. No. This was a danger sign, wasn't it, if it was true? Yes. So what did you do about it? I informed the nurse in charge and the ward round was about to begin, so we waited for the ward round. So you waited an hour and a half for a doctor to attend? Yes. You are lying, aren't you? No. If you go to the interview, please, so the first page of the Child P interviews, it's bundle 2. Here you were being asked questions about this, weren't you? Can you see? Yes. The second question. Right, and what was the time between you making these observations about his full abdomen and loops and the ward round and the further observations? You say, I think the abdomen being full was from when I took over care at 8 o'clock. Yes. So this would have been apparent to Sophie Ellis as well, wouldn't it? Yes. And yet, no note made by her? No. If this was true, you would have escalated it urgently and immediately, wouldn't you? I did. I spoke to the shift leader. Do you remember what you were telling your friend, Dr. A, at this time? No. Well, I will remind you. Tile 264. So this is following on from a message that Dr. A had sent you just before 8 o'clock saying that he'd overslept, all right? Yes. Do you remember? Yes. You responded, Eek, not like you to be late. Have you made it in? Yes, I think they know, but they want to talk to Dr. B today. That's a reference to the triplets' parents, isn't it? Yes, I think so. Yes. I've got babies R and P. That wasn't actually true, was it? No. Well, I don't know. Well, we've just seen the population distribution, haven't we? Yes. We saw that child R was being looked after by Christopher Booth. Yes, the shift leader. Why were you telling that falsehood to your friend Dr. A? I can't answer that. I'd have to see if perhaps I was doing anything with child R in the charts at that time. I don't know. Child P has stopped feeding as large asps. Yes. I've got my student again, but might see if she can work with someone else as I don't feel I'm in the frame of mind to support her properly and got loads of paperwork to finish off. Then this at 266, please. Not far away, should be in just before the handover. Large asps. I wonder if they've all been exposed to a bug that benzylpenicillin and gentamicin didn't account for. Are you okay? See you later. Then you, so this is now 8:19, tile 267, 20 minutes after you've spotted these loopy bowels in a child whose brother had died the previous day. Yes. What do you say? Maybe. I'll be watching them both like a hawk. I'm okay, just don't want to be here really. Hoping I may get the new admissions. Guess what? Wanted me to go to MRI as Mary looking after baby but has metal so can't go. I've escaped though. Phew. Did your Hawkeye miss the loopy bowels? No. Why didn't you tell Dr. A, who was about to arrive? No, Dr. A was not present on the unit on this day. Well, he was on his way into the hospital, wasn't he? Yes, the children's ward, yes. What should I do, Dr. A? I've got a child here who's exhibiting exactly the same symptoms as his brother did yesterday. No, I disagree. I raised it with the shift leader and Dr. Yuko was about to start the ward round at that time. The reason you didn't raise it is because your note is a fabrication, isn't it? No, Dr. Yuko saw loops as well. 267 we've just looked at. Do you remember telling him you wanted the new admissions? Hoping, yes. 267. Don't want to be here really, hoping I may get the new admissions. What does that mean? I didn't really want to be in work on that day after what happened with Child O, and I was hoping that maybe I would go into a different nursery where I wasn't with the triplets. You say Dr. Yuko saw a loopy bowel, yes? I think, well, I can't recall his exact note. I just said to you, the reason you didn't raise it is because your note is a fabrication. You replied, no, Dr. Yuko saw loops as well. That's my belief, yes. Well, let's see what the evidence is. Tile 289, please. On examination, mildly pale, no recession. Heart sounds normal plus very soft, systolic. Abdomen moderately distended, bloated, soft. No mention of loopy bowel there, is there? No. If we scroll down to remind ourselves, please, further down. Why didn't you tell him about the loopy bowel? It's something that it would have been visible at that time. Well, it wasn't, was it? Because he didn't see it. Or he's just not recorded it. Or you have misrecorded it. No. No real issue there, is there, in his medical note? He's slightly mottled. He's got a slightly distended abdomen. He's having some Braddies and DSATs. Do you remember that as soon as he moved on to a different child, Dr. Yuko said that child P collapsed. Yes. So not only has the night nurse resolved the problem which emerges as soon as you take over, but the doctor who examined the child doesn't see what you say you saw, doesn't identify a significant problem, and yet within 5 minutes, the child has collapsed. Yes, and that has to be your doing, doesn't it? No. Do you remember Rebecca Morgan suggesting that you had left the room at this point? Yes. Was that true? I can't comment on Rebecca's statement. From my memory, I was in the room. That's all I can comment on. Were you trying to get out of the way, so you weren't immediately associated with yet another collapse on your watch? No, I think I've always been quite clear that I thought I was in the nursery at the time. Why would you have left the nursery? There could be many reasons why I would have left the nursery. Well, there could be, potentially. But you didn't have any other children to look after, did you? No. Were you worried that child P was high risk? When I took him over for the care that day? Yes. Yes. But you left him? No, I don't agree. I've not said that I've left him. If we look at your nursing note at tile 286, please, what you record there is what happened from 8 a.m. He was in an incubator, nil by mouth, you speak of the fluids, the IV fluids that were running at a certain rate, the line was occluding, the NG tube was on free drainage, trace amounts in the tube, abdomen full, loops visible, which we've already dealt with. Then this. Registrar Yuko arrived to carry out ward round. Child P had an apnea brady-desat with mottled appearance requiring facial oxygen and neopuff for approximately 1 minute. That's a rather different picture to what's recorded in Dr. Yuko's note, isn't it? I'm not sure without looking at his note. Okay, well we'll go to it please, tile 289. He starts with the background, is that right? Yes, this is a note that he's made on the ward round. The apnea happened afterwards. I know, that's exactly my point. The impression you are creating in the nursing note is it's as Dr. Yuko arrives that all these events happened. Yes, he was in the room at the time, yes. No, but you have missed out in your narrative the fact that there was a perfectly normal ward round, and it was only after the doctor had moved on that the child collapsed. I don't see what the difference is. He was in the room. Very well. Just going back to your note, please. That gives the impression, doesn't it, that it was the neopuffing that caused the abdomen to become distended. That it was becoming increasingly distended, yes. But it's deliberately written. I'm suggesting to create the impression that the distension is the result of the neopuffing. Okay. Do you agree? Yes. It's becoming more distended, yes. There was no mention of neopuffing to Dr. Yuko when he arrived, was there? Dr. Yuko was present. Do you remember Dr. Yuko saying that in the 5 minutes between the ward round examination and the collapse, child P was in a very different condition? No. Different? No, I don't understand. Yes, the baby he saw at 9:35 was in a very different condition to the baby he saw at 9:40. Yes. And the only conceivable reason for that, I'm suggesting, is because you sabotaged him. No. He also said that you were very keen for Dr. A to be called. Yes, in his opinion. Yes. And you've just told us that Dr. A wasn't even due to be on the neonatal unit. No, he wasn't. No. Dr. B requested for me to call him. Oh, it was Dr. B who wanted Dr. A, was it? Yes, it was discussed that he had been present with child O the day before and that Dr. A's expertise was needed. That wasn't quite the way Dr. Yuko put it, was it? No, that's Dr. Yuko's opinion. Yes. Well, he was there, of course, wasn't he? Yes. Were you trying to attract Dr. A's attention? No. So it was Dr. B. Let me get this right. Who discussed with who about getting Dr. A? I believe it was myself and Chris and Dr. Yuko, and she raised that Dr. A had been present the day before with child O, so it might be worthwhile that he came as a senior registrar to assist. All right. The defence statement at paragraph 182 says this. A little after 9:35, I was talking with Rebecca Morgan when child P stopped breathing. Dr. Yuko was in nursery 2 already because he was writing up his notes. The monitor sounded and I shouted for Dr. B because she was already on the unit. I also called Dr. A to assist. Yes. No mention there of getting Dr. A being the idea of Dr. B. No. Why not? This statement doesn't cover every single point that I make. No. Did you enjoy being in these crisis situations with Dr. A? No. Did he give you something to talk to him about and message him about? No, Dr. A and I were friends. Something in common that you could share? No. Child P underwent full CPR with 4 doses of adrenaline. Yes. But he was brought back, wasn't he? Yes. And the reason he crashed was because you had injected air down the nasogastric tube. No. Do you agree with Dr. B that this cannot have been an infection because Child P recovered so quickly? Yes, if that's her medical opinion, yes. Let's move on to the second episode, please, which happened at 11:30 that morning. This was an occasion when Child P had further CPR. He was put onto a ventilator, but he, within a short period of time, was fighting the ventilator. Do you remember Dr. B saying he was very vigorous and breathing against the ventilator? Yes. Is that an accurate summary of what happened? I recall that he needed pancuronium to settle him, yes. Yes. And the pancuronium is at tiles 391 and 392, if we can go to that, please. Recognise the writing? Yes. Whose is it? It's mine. And where was this found? In my house. Whereabouts in your house? Was it in the bag? I don't know. How did it get there? I put it there. Why did you put it there? I collect paper, and that's where it's ended up. I put it there. Why do you collect paper? I have difficulty with throwing anything away, particularly paper. Is there something comforting about paper? No, I keep paper, yes, from a variety of different sources, yes. But not bank statements. No. 11:32. Pancuronium. How quickly does pancuronium take effect? I'm not sure entirely. That's something I've not used very often, so I'd have to ask a medical opinion for that. It's very quick, isn't it? A minute or 2? I can't say that. Well, I don't know. The purpose of it is to, in effect, paralyse the patient, isn't it? Yes. It enables the machine to take over the breathing function. Yes. And it prevents the patient expending wasted energy by fighting the ventilator. That's right. Shortly afterwards, at about noon, you were with Dr. B and Child P, and Dr. B told you that the transport team was on the way. Yes. Do you remember what you said? I know what she says that I said. I don't recall saying that. He's not leaving here alive, is he? That, as a matter of fact, was an accurate prediction, wasn't it? I don't recall saying that statement at that time. What did you say? I don't recall the conversation. Do you remember Dr. B told the jury that Child P had just had a good blood gas? Yes. Was Dr. B correct when she said that people in the medical world just don't say things like, he's not leaving here alive, is he? Yes. It's just not the done thing. No. Do you remember that there was a further desaturation at 12:28? Yes. The third on what I called the tea room desaturation. Do you remember that? Yes. This is when Dr. B, and I think it was it Dr. A, had gone to the tea room. Yes, for a quick break. It was at 12:28 and you were still looking after Child P. Yes, I was Child P's nurse throughout the day. Yes. Yes. Child P had been given pancuronium an hour earlier. Yes, hadn't he? So he was fully immobilised. Yes. And the next thing that doctors A and B heard was you shouting for help. Yes. You, when they went into the nursery, were standing over Child P, weren't you? I can't recall that now, but that's what they say. And there was a problem with his breathing tube. Do you remember that? I don't remember it from my memory now, no. This was a child that could not move, so he could not have dislodged his own tube, could he? No. This was a tube that had gone in at 9:50? Yes. So about 2.5 hours earlier? Yes. The problem, in inverted commas, with the tube happened just after the doctors had left the room, didn't it? Yes. Just after you had said, "He's not getting out of here alive." Well, I don't agree that I said that. Whether or not you said that. Is this yet another bit of bad luck that it happened just after everybody else left? Yes. And from this moment on, events have demonstrated that Child P was in a terminal decline. Would you agree? Yes. The damage had been done, whatever it was. Do you accept Dr. Breary eliminated a heart issue? Yes. You will remember, I'm sure, the final terminal collapse of Child P at 15:14. Yes. And you will remember, I'm sure, that his father, the father of Child O, P and R, said that the circumstances of Child P's death were very similar to Child O's. Yes. Just as I am suggesting you had predicted, both in your text on the way home after Child O's death and in your remark to Dr. B. No, that's not what happened. Well, certainly it's what was in the text, isn't it? Yes. That was a portent of doom, wasn't it? No, I disagree. You disagree? Did you enjoy making predictions when you knew what was going to happen? No. And you got very excited in the aftermath of Child P's death, didn't you? No, I did not. 2 babies killed within about 24 hours of each other. No. And you were acting, according to Dr. B, in a totally inappropriate way in that room. According to Dr. B, yes. Just as you had acted in an inappropriate way with the mother of Child I and with the mother of Child C. Do you agree? No, I don't. And you were falling over yourself to tell Sophie Ellis about it, weren't you? No, I told Sophie as respect for her coming in on that shift. Out of respect. Well, it's common practice that we would let staff know so they don't walk in and just find something out or potentially bump into a parent and say something. Usually we would tell a member of staff. Oh, right. So she was about to come into work, was she? Well, I can't remember if she was coming into work or if she was off. I can't remember. I think you remember exactly where she was, don't you? No. Well, let's remind you. Tile 628. Yes, so I was giving her an update in reference to what she's asked me. And she was at the races. Yes. Why didn't you just leave her alone? She's asking me. Oh, yes. Did you enjoy the drama? No. Tile 654, please. This is to Sophie Ellis later on. Yes. Just blew tummy up. Where have we heard that before? With other babies? Yes. But which one in particular? Child O? Yes. In his sequence at tile 334. Virtually the same message. Yes. You'd killed them both, hadn't you? No. Your portent of doom had fulfilled itself, hadn't it? No. At your hand? No. Do you remember that Child P also had a liver injury, albeit it wasn't as bad as Child O's? Yes. You caused that, didn't you? No. And you injected him with air down the NGT? No, I didn't. Moving on to Child Q, please. If we go back to your defence statement at paragraph 191. The final count, of course, count 22. You begin by saying that you did nothing to harm Child Q. Paragraph 191. I didn't work nights from June 22nd and was not on the ward after the 25th, so I cannot be the person the mother of Child Q describes at these times. Paragraph 192. On the day of the 25th of June, I was Child Q's designated nurse. He was in nursery 2. I also had a baby in nursery 1. We were very busy. At paragraph 193, I don't recall the handover. So much had gone on the day before that I don't recall the time between the handover and when Child Q started to deteriorate. Paragraph 194. It appears that Child Q had been receiving feeds regularly before my shift, although aspirates continued to be withdrawn. I don't understand why feeding continued if he was not digesting the milk he was being fed. Paragraph 195. Child Q was due a feed at 0900 hours, but I did not feed child Q. I wanted the doctors to see him on the ward round before he was fed. After I'd undertaken checks and observations on child Q, I told Mary Griffith that I was going to nursery 1 to look after the baby there. That baby was BM. Mina Lapalainen was at the desk. 196. I understand that whilst I was looking after BM, child Q was sick and that he was then neopuffed by Mina. This was already happening when I came back to the nursery. I conducted some checks and I have noted that I aspirated air from his stomach. I don't know how that air came to be there. I didn't do that. Then 197. The doctors reviewed child Q and put him in nursery 1, where I continued to look after him. I wouldn't say that this was a collapse. Child Q was sick and he did need the neopuff and suction, but he was not ventilated until much later in the day when he became tired. 199. I don't remember aspirating child Q with an NG tube after the vomit. I continued to look after child Q during the day. 201. Child Q didn't have another collapse or become seriously unwell, but he did become tired during the course of the day. This is why he was intubated. He was not put on a ventilator because of concerns about NEC. Finally, I did not deliberately retain a handover sheet from the morning of June 25th, 2016. All right? Yes. So first of all, is that what the document says? Yes. Now, I don't know whether you remember, but do you remember that Dr. Evans was challenged for suggesting that child Q had crashed? It was suggested to him that that is a gross exaggeration of what we're dealing with. Yes. Is that your position? Yes. Do you accept that crashed is the right word? No, I don't think this was a crash collapse, no. What word would you use? It's a deterioration. A deterioration? Yes. What sort of a deterioration? An acute deterioration at that time. Do you remember the text message you sent to Dr. A about 2 weeks later on July 6th? Do you remember the one I'm talking about? No. Well, we may come to it tomorrow, but it's in the sequence of post-indictment text messages. Do you remember that document? Yes. And it's 2 messages at 163 and 164, if Mr. Murphy could help, please. So this was Dr. A to you. Child Q's care is going to be reviewed on Thursday as well because of acute deterioration. Yes. And you responded, the next message. That makes sense. This wasn't just some common or garden desaturation, was it? Yes, it was. I'm referring to the decline that came later on in the shift. You've just told us that you would characterise what happened at the beginning of the shift as an acute deterioration. Yes. And that is what is being talked about here, isn't it? Yes, I would also class what happened to him later in the shift as an acute deterioration as well. What's the difference between a crash and an acute deterioration? I would define a crash as something that requires a crash call, an emergency bleep, which means the baby is needing resuscitative measures. After child Q's acute deterioration, you were relieved of the care of the child BM, weren't you? Yes. Why was that, if what happened to child Q at the beginning of the shift really wasn't anything very serious? Because he needed to move into nursery 1. Why did he need to move into nursery 1? Because he deteriorated. He was in a serious condition after that crash, wasn't he? No, I disagree. No. He needed one-to-one care after that acute deterioration, didn't he? Yes, because he was classed as ITU. Yes. All right. So this thing that's been characterised as a gross exaggeration to say it's a crash puts him into ITU. Can we agree on that? Yes. Let's look at the population distribution, please. It's 87 of the child Q sequence. This is the beginning of the shift, isn't it? Yes. What we see is that child Q was with you in nursery 2, and YM was with Mary Griffith. Yes. You had another child, BM, in nursery 1, and nurse B had 2 others. Yes. One of whom was a baby called JA, wasn't he? Yes. Do you remember JA, as a matter of interest? Yes. Did you ever fill in a Datix form for JA? I'm not sure about that. Right, well, we'll come to that a little later. In nursery 3 were 3 children, 2 of whom were being cared for by Mary Griffith. Yes. And in 4, 4 children, 3 of whom being cared for by the band 4 Nicola Dennison, and your friend Mary also in there as well. Yes. And so Mary was split. Her attentions were split between 3 separate rooms. Yes. Concentrating on child Q though, is it your case that staffing levels caused or contributed to child Q's collapse? No. Is it your case that mistakes contributed to his collapse? No. Or that some form of medical or nursing incompetence made a contribution? No. We'll see what we can agree. At the beginning, following his birth, do you accept or do you agree that child Q needed some respiratory support initially? Yes. So he was born on the 22nd of June at 0409 and was admitted to the NNU at 0435, just to jog your memory. That, of course, was the day after child O, P and R were born, wasn't it? Yes. Whilst you were still away, as a matter of fact. Yes. Child Q made good progress, didn't he? Do you remember that? Yes. He was off CPAP on day 2 of life, which was the 23rd of June. Do you remember that? I know he was on Optiflow by the time I was caring for him on this day, yes. Well, it may be a good idea to have a look, actually, behind divider 22 in the secondary bundle. There's a very easy ready reckoner in the gas chart, isn't there, as to the position of child Q's breathing support? Yes. So we see a couple of CPAPs at 1657 on the day he was born, followed by 0055 on the 23rd. But after that, self-ventilating in air. Yes. Back onto CPAP after what I'm suggesting was a collapse at your hands at the beginning of the shift on the 25th. Yes. So according to that at least, no breathing support. No. It's just before you suggested that there was some form of breathing support. I thought from my memory, but that's why I wanted to check. Okay. As long as we know. Now can we go to tile 72 please? That gives us the observation chart, for which there is actually a hard copy as well in that same bundle, pages 2 and 3. That is a very encouraging picture, isn't it, until 9 o'clock, when these events unfolded. Yes, other than some temperature issues, but yes. On the night shift of the 23rd into the 24th, do you remember the evidence of Tanya Downs, who said that she got a 2 ml bile and blood-flecked aspirate at 21:30? Yes. His feeds were stopped. But we know, don't we, that child Q's bowels were working well? Yes, he had his bowels opened, yes. So that's the position on the 23rd into the 24th. On the day shift of the 24th, which was the day that child P died, do you remember Nurse D was looking after him and told us that he was fine, albeit there were a few what she described as false braddies from a loose ECG lead? Yes. On the night shift of the 24th into the 25th, so this is the shift before you took over, Samantha O'Brien looked after child Q. Do you remember? Yes. She was getting aspirates, but he was tolerating very small trophic feeds. Yes. 0.5 milliliter every 2 hours. Yes. His breathing was good. Do you remember that? Yes. And Dr. D, so this is tile 79 please, told us that at 6:58 there was a good blood gas. Scroll down. Thank you very much. It's the first blood gas on the 25th of the 6th. Do you see that? Yes. Would you agree that that is a very good blood gas? Yes. I think you said on the afternoon of May 17th, in answer to questions you were asked by your counsel, that to quote you directly, talking about this blood gas, I was aware this had not been as good as previously. What are you referring to there? So there has been a slight increase in the lactate. But essentially that's it, is it? Well, his pH isn't as good. It's still a good gas, but it's not as good as the previous one, no. Do you agree that child Q was in good condition when you took him on at about 8 o'clock on June 25th? No, there were concerns for his abdomen and his feeds. Who was concerned? I was concerned. Anybody else? I don't recall. Well, when you took handover, were concerns being expressed to you by anybody else about him? So when I received handover, yes, I'd been informed that he'd had some large aspirates overnight. He was in good condition, wasn't he? I don't think a baby having large aspirates is a baby in good condition, no. We've already established by looking at tile 87 that your other charge was BM in nursery 1. Yes. And when you were interviewed by the police, you could still remember BM's name, couldn't you? Yes. Yes. So several years, a couple of years later, you could still remember that particular child's name. Yes. Do you remember when you were asked about child Q by your counsel on May 17th? Your counsel asked you about child Q's condition when you took him over. You said this: I don't recall there being any significant problems with child Q. And then you were asked the same question again and directed to the observation charts, and you said, he was on the cold side, and in light of the aspirates on the chart, I decided I'd prefer to have him reviewed before feeding him. Yes. Okay. We've already established that Mary Griffith had several babies to look after in 3 different rooms, didn't we? Yes. Right. I just want to look at Mary Griffith's movements immediately before child Q had his, what I will call, collapse. So we need to go to the big black file, please, the very last neonatal review. We're going to look at what you were doing and what Mary Griffith was doing, okay? Yes. At line 18, so it's page 2 of 7, we can see that you were doing an infusion for a child J.A. who was in nursery 1, and you were doing that with Dr. A and nurse B. Yes. At 0800 hours, so it's lines 27 and 28, you were doing observations and the neonatal fluid balance chart for child Q. Yes. At 0830, lines 45 and 46, you went back to nursery 1 to do observations and make an entry on the chart for the child BM in nursery 1. Yes. At 0832, do we see that you were co-signing for medication with Mary Griffith for MB, who was in nursery 3? Yes. At 0900, lines 60 and 61, we see that Mary Griffith was doing observations for the child YM, yes, who is the other child in nursery 2. What we also see, though, at line 59, is an unsigned entry timed at 0900 hours for the child BM, who was your child. Yes. But also at line 55, just going up the page, we see that you are recording yourself as doing observations for child Q, yes, at 0900. When you were doing those observations, were you interrupted by Mary Griffith? I don't recall doing the observations. I don't recall being interrupted, no. I say interrupted because if we go to the sequence of events, please, at tile 99, there's swipe data for Mary Griffith coming into the neonatal unit. Yes. I'm going to suggest to you that whilst Mary Griffith was out of the unit, you had pumped child Q with some clear fluid. That didn't happen, no. Of course, giving him milk wouldn't have been an option, would it? Because he wasn't getting anything more than 0.5 of a milliliter every couple of hours. That's right. And if he had vomited a large amount of milk, it would have been very obvious that something was wrong, wouldn't it? Yes. And that's why you chose a clear fluid on this occasion, isn't it? No. Is Mary Griffith right when she says that you were still in nursery 2 when she started to feed YM? I can't recall exactly what Mary was doing, but she was in the room with her baby when I left, yes. I don't know exactly what she was doing. Well, you see, at 0904, you were certainly not in the room because you were signing for medications with nurse B in nursery 1. If we go to tile 97, please, and just scroll down, just concentrating on the 9 o'clock entries, why did you do half a job? I can't explain why I haven't filled in the saturations. You were interrupted, weren't you, by Mary Griffith? No, I don't know why I haven't filled that in. Do you remember the reason that you gave to the police as to why it was you left the room? To go and check on the baby in nursery 1. It wasn't quite that, was it? To care for her, to do cares. Yes. If we go to the third and final interview in the case of child Q, here you're being asked about these events. Yes. You can see at the top the police put to you that you completed child Q's observations and he was due a feed, but it was not given. You say that you didn't give him anything. They ask you whether it was air that you had administered, and then you are asked whether you deliberately left the room to blame the collapse on Mina and Mary. Yes. Do you remember telling the police that you went to do cares? Yes, my memory at that time was that I needed to go in to do cares on that baby, yes. Do you remember several of your colleagues have said that for babies in intensive care, minimal handling is preferred? Yes. And the child BM was one that you had had a fair bit of contact with in the hour or so immediately preceding child Q's collapse. I don't know about that. I carried out observations, yes. Yes. If you go back to page 3 of the neonatal review, yes. Just to remind you, it can be difficult to keep a tab on all this. At 0830, BM, observations and an entry on the chart. Yes. So you'd had contact with this intensive care child about 30 minutes or 40 minutes before child Q collapsed. Yes. And you left the room. Yes. You were not leaving the room to do cares for that child, were you? Yes, that was my memory at that time. Yes, that I needed to go into nursery 1 to see this baby. You've all probably spotted it on page 15. It's about a third of the way down. Do you see in the left-hand column it says 15, 57, 57, 20, 00, 24, 29? Yes. And it's actually ironically just after the question I read to you, and you said, no, the baby in nursery 1 was due cares at that time. Yes. And that just isn't true, is it, at 0910? That baby was not due cares. That's what I recalled at that time, yes. That's what I recalled, my memory being at the time of the interview. This was why I'd gone into nursery 1. I know that's what you said to the police, but as a matter of fact, it wasn't true, was it? She didn't need a nappy change, no. What cares were you doing then? I can't say for definite now what I was doing, but she was an intensive care baby, so I wouldn't have left her for too long a period of time without checking on her. Yes, but we've established, haven't we, that you started child Q's observations at 9 o'clock? Yes. You didn't complete them, so rather than completing one job, you then go to do another job that you haven't documented, and there's no suggestion in the paperwork that you actually needed to do. So just explain that, please. My memory at that time was that I'd gone to the nursery because that baby needed something. On reflection, looking at all of this, possibly it was that I went to do medications with Nurse B. I can't say now. My memory at the time of the police interview was that I'd gone back to CBM because she was an intensive care baby that needed to be looked at. Because you had sabotaged child Q. You were just looking for a reason to get out of the room when Mary Griffiths appeared back in the unit, weren't you? No. Do you remember when you were giving evidence on May 17th? You said that you had told Mary Griffith and Mina Lapalainen that you were going to nursery 1. Yes. Why would you do that, leaving half a job done in nursery 2? I don't believe I have left a job half done. I agree I've not written down the saturation reading, but otherwise the job was done. All right. Is this an error? Yes, I think it's a mistake that any nurse could make, and does make. So it just so happens to be that a clerical error is made pretty much at the moment that the child has an acute deterioration. Yes. And part of the clerical error is you disappearing from the room just before the event. That's not a clerical error, no.